You're listening to ReachMD XM157, the channel for medical professionals. Welcome to this month's feature series, Focus on Medical Education.
What exactly is a Microsoft HealthVault and how will it help us? You are listening to a special segment on health education on the Clinicians Roundtable. My name is Dr. Larry Kaskel. I'll be hosting today, and my guest is Dr. Bill Crounse, who is the Senior Director of Worldwide Health for Microsoft Corporation. Dr. Crounse, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Larry.
Well, it sounds very secretive or bank-like. What is the Microsoft HealthVault?
Well, hopefully it also sounds very secure. HealthVault is actually a new service we launched here at Microsoft on October 4th of 2007 in Washington, D.C., is where the announcement was made. People can check it out. It's www.healthvault.com. What's it about? Well, you and I have talked in the past about how around the world, basically, whether we're talking about the kind of system we have here in the U.S. or government-funded systems around the world, the bottom line is that increasingly consumers are going to be taking on more personal responsibility for the cost of care or more personal responsibility for taking care of themselves. In our highly complex, fragmented healthcare system, it's really hard for people to kind of get their arms around all the things they need to do that. And at Microsoft, we're really dedicated to improving health around the world. And so with HealthVault, we've launched basically a operating system, a platform, if you will, where people can search for health information, securely store and share their health information, and also a service that allows them to connect with devices they might bring into the home, for example, peak flow meters, glucometers, so forth, upload that information, store it in their HealthVault, and make it available to their physicians or other medical providers.
Let's go through the reality or the actuality of, let's say someone logs on to healthvault.com and they set up their own personal history, they store it, and let's say they download it onto a CD, and they bring it to their doctor, and the doctor opens it. What form does it open up in?
Well, actually, they certainly wouldn't even need to download it to a CD. I mean, they can give their physician permission to view their data.
Okay.
And again, I want to state a couple of things, first of all, because you may have international listeners, and currently the HealthVault service is available to U.S. residents only. We purposely launched it here in the U.S. And secondly, this is the early days, I think, of what is going to be a very exciting time in the development of the personal health record and consumer engagement to all of this. Today, consumers can establish a HealthVault account. This is basically a storage place. The press actually kind of got it wrong when we first launched HealthVault. I read headlines that said Microsoft had launched a personal health record, and actually what we launched was a platform, if you will, where the personal health record can live. So basically today, I mean, consumers can upload their information. It can even be faxed information. It can be images. It can be anything that they have that is about them and their medical record. And there are some, of course, tools and forms and things that help them aggregate and store this information. There are security features and sharing features that allow them to give access to this information to whomever they want to give access to. They have the ability to also search for health information. In HealthVault Search, what we've done is through an acquisition we made called MedStory, we've really refined the way, there's 8 million people a day searching for health information on the internet just here in the U.S., and what we wanted to do is make sure they got highly qualified, very relevant information. So they'll find when they use HealthVault Search that it'll really be kind of an entirely new search experience. What will pop up when they search for a medical term will be basically an overview article from a highly qualified source. There'll be some other web links. There's something called a topic dashboard that allows them to refine the search along the use, whether it's medications or alternative health services and this sort of thing. There's a way that they can actually store their searches privately in their HealthVault account. And then there's also, for certain topics, there's a place where you can act on that information. So in other words, if there's a book or a web service of some kind that's related to that, you can act on that and sign up for something, get some more information, sign up for a service. So,
does any of that cost money?
Actually, HealthVault is free. It's not only free to consumers, but it is free to developers. It's free to partners. It is a platform for a whole variety of web services around health and health information.
If I were an insurance company, I would be very interested in that HealthVault. I would try to tap into that vault.
Well, in fact, it's not a matter of them tapping into it, but
hacking in.
Or hacking in, because that's not going to happen. But there are a number of provider organizations. There will certainly be a number of plan organizations that will be working with us that will help populate a consumer's HealthVault account. And that's sort of the idealized scenario. Is I could make an analogy to sort of the history of the automatic teller machine. When we first had automatic teller machines, we could check our bank account. You couldn't do much else, and they were interesting, but not very interesting. When they became highly transactional, when you could move funds around and do everything, basically all of your banking in sort of an online or kiosk-type experience, then the ATM became a very compelling device and technology, and not too many of us probably interface with tellers a whole lot anymore. To use that analogy, where we're going with HealthVault, obviously, is we would like the consumer's health information to be auto-populated. So if your provider organization is on the HealthVault platform, then that portion of your medical record that you need to see will be automatically populated, your lab information, your radiology information, et cetera, from all the providers that you might encounter. And likewise, your prescriptions, your medications, and information that might come from your payer. So that's where this is going. We're not there yet, but like I say, we're making some exciting announcements in the coming months as well.
How does the data get stored? Let's say I have faxes from all my different physicians and I load them in. Does it get changed into a digital format, or are there just a whole bunch of faxes sitting in there?
The nice thing about it is we don't restrict you to a particular format, basically. So in other words, you can store images, you can store fax documents, and you can store digital information as well. The other thing that you can do that I alluded to is this idea of the HealthVault Connection Center, which basically you're starting to see a lot of devices come on the market, and we're working with partners that include LifeScan and MicroLife and Omron and Polar and others as well. You purchase one of these heart rate monitors or blood pressure cuffs or glucometers or spirometers, and as you know, these devices, of course, have little chips in them and they can store information. But with HealthVault, we made it very easy for the consumer, so you can basically download some drivers and that device will sync to your computer and upload your data, and you can graph it and chart it and study it and share it also with your healthcare providers.
I could see them just sending me an email of all their sugars or of all their blood pressure readings, and I can just say, okay, up your dose, decrease your dose, don't need to come in.
That's certainly the idea, and I don't want our clinicians out there to think, because I know what they're thinking.
Right. Oh my God.
Don't overwhelm me with information, right? However, I think what they will find is that actually this sort of empowers the consumer, first of all, or the patient, to be able to kind of keep track of their information over time. This is especially targeted at people who have chronic diseases and people who are the home medical manager, which, quite frankly, is often the woman of the household who's keeping track of kids' health and immunizations and so forth. How many times do you have to fill out those crazy forms for schools and so forth? And this is a way to very quickly breeze through that. And who among us can even remember off the top of our heads our immunizations and medications and some of the things that we need to know?
How does your HealthVault differ from what Google's working on?
Well, first of all, I think we may find that we're offering similar services. I think Microsoft was kind of first to market in this regard. Companies such as Microsoft and Google, and I'm sure there will be others as well. I mean, healthcare is a big, complex industry. I think it's exciting, quite frankly, that a number of companies are getting in this space. On my health blog, wrote an article a while back that said it was kind of in reaction to a Wall Street Journal article on this topic of, why is it that the global technologies companies are playing in this space? And my retort back really was, well, if not the Microsofts and Googles and companies of that like, who will do this? And I think as we're seeing consumer confidence and consumer adoption of this is really exciting. People have been establishing lots and lots of HealthVault accounts. More and more partners are joining up with us every day. And so I think it's terrific that companies like Microsoft, like Google, and others will be in this space.
How in control are the patients of their data? I would imagine they're 100% in control of the data that they're putting in their HealthVault.
They are totally in control of that. And in fact, our privacy commitment, our commitment really to the patients is that, first of all, the Microsoft HealthVault record that you create is controlled entirely by you. Number two, you decide what goes into your HealthVault record. Number three, you decide who can see and use your information on a case-by-case basis. And fourth, we at Microsoft will not use your health information for commercial purposes or any other purpose unless we ask you and you clearly tell us that we may. Privacy and security, as you can well imagine, with health information is paramount. Although we take privacy and security very seriously in all things that we do here at the company, in establishing HealthVault, we are taking extraordinary measures.
Do you see any unintended consequences of the HealthVault that you haven't even anticipated yet?
I really can't think of unintended consequences. I mean, should there be, a breach of our system or anybody's system out there, one would be concerned about unintended consequences, and particularly as we get into the era of, personalized medicine and genetic information and so forth. But by and large, I think the greater good is we've been talking for years about giving people the information that they need to make intelligent decisions about their health, sort of empowering them with the information and the tools and the technologies to make lifestyle changes and other changes and better compliance with medications and all of this. And yet, historically, we just have not delivered that. And what I'm seeing in HealthVault and services like this is an era when consumers finally will begin to be able to get their arms around their health information, and after all, it is their information,
right.
And use that information to benefit their health.
Does this tie in at all, thinking futuristically about, years ago they were talking about putting little rice chips, I think they're RFID. Right, in, underneath people's skin with their health records. And then they check into the ER and you basically get all of their records. I mean, is there any desire to tie into that, or is that too politically incorrect?
I mean, whether it's politically incorrect or not, I think that's a decision that, each and every consumer would have to make for themselves. I mean, the technology is certainly there. I know there are lots of scenarios. In fact, on my travels was recently hearing while I was over in the UK about a very controversial program to basically tag prisoners with RFID chips. Regardless of how you feel about that, I mean, we have the technology, and I can think of scenarios in healthcare. I've shared with people on my blog and personally about my own family's trials and tribulations with a parent going through the final stages of Alzheimer's diseases and some of the challenges dealing with patient populations that are suffering from dementia. And I think, in certain circumstances, and I think there will be some individuals with chronic medical conditions or others that as this technology becomes refined, they may decide that they would like their loved one or themselves to be implanted with a chip that would contain their medical information so that first responders would have all their information. That is one scenario that could play out for some people, but I don't think it's anything, that I would want to see a vision where the consumer, the patient, is in control, and that's a matter of personal choice.
And in your travels around the world, are there countries that are actually using RFID with the entire population?
I'm not seeing, government-mandated implantable chips, certainly, nor do I think that will happen, at least in the near term. What we are seeing, of course, is a lot of that kind of technology that is in health information cards, and even our passports, of course, are chipped these days. So in countries, I can think of initiatives going on in places like Spain and Singapore and elsewhere where the health card you carry is embedded with this information, and first responders and others can basically have access to that information that's part of your health record.
Bill Crounse, thank you so much for coming back and sharing what's new at Microsoft.
My pleasure, Larry. Take care.
You've been listening to a special segment on health education on the Clinicians Roundtable on ReachMD XM 157, the channel for medical professionals. We welcome your questions and comments. If you visit us at our website, reachmd.com, you can now check out all of our shows and download them on demand. Thanks for listening.
Tune in each hour for the ReachMD feature series, Focus on Medical Education. We thank you for listening to ReachMD XM 157, the channel for medical professionals.